for people who don't know you, which will be a bunch of them,
Sure.
why are you here today when there's 40,000 real estate agents in there? Why did we sort of say, because I was talking to Scott about, Scott, do you want to jump on? And Scott's spoken at events and things like that.
Yeah.
He was telling me about what you were doing. I think, no, that could really be inspiring to people who are maybe a couple of years in and maybe a bit younger than your 45-year-old counterparts. So give us the Jarrod Willis story.
Sure. Thanks for that. First of all, mate, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time in the spotlight, so thank you so much. And I'm not as big a public speaker as Scott is, as you know, so I'm a little bit nervous, so forgive me for that. But Glenn, I'm 24 years of age, but I've been in real estate this year for 9 years. So real estate is everything that I know, mate. It's what I've learned, and I feel like I've had a really good head start in my career with real estate. I started from the ground up. I think it's the best way to learn. 1 day a week in year 12 at high school, property management for a year. 3 years then as a personal assistant full-time to seven different agents. That was an amazing way to learn sales from the ground up. Everyone's got different personalities and different ways of doing things and speaking to clients and prospecting and just getting on to the day-to-day business. So I could take a bit from her and a bit from him, and over 3 years sort of put my own spin on it. And when Robin and Pete and Scott and Karen, the family sort of agreed that I was ready and old enough to get out there, and they threw me in the deep end, and I've been selling now for another 3 years, and I love it, mate. It's every day is different, and got some good sales under my belt now. So actually very proud. I'll use this time to mention it, but yesterday I secured my highest sale so far in my career, for my own self, like buyers and sellers, of course. Very special. I went into the office this morning and missed out on the start of the first session because I was sorting out the contract and getting that off. But
if ever there was an excuse for a 24-year-old to pull off a record sale, forgiven, and I'll make sure I get you every minute of the recording, mate. As soon as it's done and what do they call it, rendered, you will get a copy of it, my man. Congrats, bud.
Thank you.
And tell us about your marketplace. Are you in the middle of downtown New Farm where every sale pockets you $30,000? Like, tell us about the marketplace that you ply your trade in.
No, so definitely not, Glenn. We're in little old Caboolture, half an hour north of Brisbane and 45 minutes south of the Sunshine Coast. So my average sale price is $335,000. So we deal with a lot of investment properties, sort of 50-50 investment properties to owner occupied. So a lot of what we do is dealing with tenants and leases that are in place, and nurturing tenants through that process as well. So very, very different marketplace to a lot of the top agents you might see in today's webinar. But we're still doing our sales. I guess the small fish are sweet. It's our bread and butter, and just keep kicking on.
Now, for a couple of years, for a little while, you were working with, in hand with Scott Lackman, who epitomises many of the principles that we talk about in our coaching program, that many of the mentors that have been on today have talked about, that they've, in some cases, I'm honoured that they've given me some or all of the credit for those principles. But
so we still are. Scott and I are still very much Batman and Robin. Right. Scott gets to be Batman because he owns the business. But Robin's still cool. Robin is still cool,
And Robin turned into Nightwing and kicks Batman's ass eventually.
Exactly.
But give us an idea of what roles you've then had to perfect at the age of 24. You've spent sort of from 20 to 24 now, kind of in that role, 21 to 24. Very, the sort of age where many people would say, "Oh no, you can't do the role of a real estate agent." So give us an idea about what roles out of the entire myriad of whether it's marketing and prospecting and listing presentations and buy negotiations and running of open homes and all of those things, which of the roles have you had to focus on and perfect, and how has that journey gone?
Yeah, sure. So Scott, with his experience and 26 years of experience, he's good at getting the business in and dealing with sellers, I guess. And at the start of my career, that was something that I did struggle with a bit, being more inexperienced and sitting in front of a seller and trying to sell yourself and prove why you're the man to get the job done. That's where Scott excels in what he does, and that's why we work good as a team. We dabble in both areas with sellers and buyers now that I'm more experienced and sort of know what I'm talking about now. But my main role, sort of leading to this point, was dealing with buyers and marketing the property. Putting together the ad description, your signboards, and just I guess a lot of the back end work as well. But running buyers, showing buyers through the property, getting offers, and so that's sort of been my role. But again, if I've got the relationship with the future seller, I'll happily go and do the listing presentation and deal with the seller from that respect, and sometimes flick a few buyers over to Scotty.
I love it. What sort of numbers do you guys carry as a Batman and Robin duo?
Sure. So in the 3 years of selling, we're up to about 125 sales. So what's that, about 40?
So it's about one a week. Yeah, about
40 a year.
Week. Yeah.
Nice. Doing it right.
Yeah, nice. And
I'm up to about $42 million worth of sales. So that's where that average comes into play for the 335 grand per average.
Right. Yeah. Not many 24-year-olds could boast it. Linda just suggests, love working with you, Jarrod Willis. You're an inspiration and should be proud of your integrity. So there you go.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda.
I'll fix you up for that comment later, Linda. Thank you.
When I was there, you were on the edge of your seat taking notes, most enthusiastic out of the whole group, and I handed you a couple of leads that I generated. Like I started some Facebook ads and, just to show you guys what's possible, and by the lunchtime, 3 hours later, handed 2 appraisal leads.
Yes.
You were in those doors within 3 days from memory. Just tell us about how, when a lead is generated, how follow-up and speed and service and maybe use one of those as a case study, but or even one that's worked where it's turned into a listing faster. But just give us an idea of your process when a lead comes in that's, give us an update on what my house is worth. How do you convert that inquiry to a listing opportunity, then to a listing?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, you brought the leads in with the Facebook ad that we did, and just touch base with them straight away, and say that we're the area expert and can come around and talk to them about their property worth and talk about the current marketplace, and then if they're not quite ready to sell, then put them in the database and stay in regular contact with them, and just give them an update at least every 6 months, and a phone call sooner than that, and they'll be there. You'll be the ones in their mind for when it does come around to put the listing on the market.
I know that given that you work with Scott, you'll have this attitude in mind that all these people you're meeting now, especially as you're in your 20s, that you'll be selling for these people in their 40s and their kids, and their kids. Like this, you've got time to play the longest of long games. Tell us about your databasing skills. Given that you're, Ray Wood, who was on before, speaks very highly of Scott, and Ray's a databasing master. Tell us about what if I met you now and I wasn't ready. What would the contact look like for the next 3 years? And what media would you be using, where some of it may be face-to-face, some of it may be on the phone? What would I be looking forward to in terms of contact that's driven by that database?
Sure. So at the very least, a sit-down face-to-face meeting, every 12 months. I can do a quick appraisal every 6 months to them, just to touch base and see if prices have changed or not. Even if they haven't changed, it's a good excuse to touch base and give a phone call and stay at front of mind. I guess just staying in contact with people and being front of mind, ready for when it is time.
What CRM do you guys use?
Locked on.
Yeah. What sort of learning curve did you go through to learn how to drive it? I mean, Ray said before, drive it like you stole it. How close to that attitude are you guys as far as drive it like you stole it, using it to its maximum capability?
Probably about 75%, if I'm brutally honest.
Better than most, I can promise you.
We could use it a lot more than what we do, but we probably use it more for after to stay in contact with clients to keep in contact with them if they have sold with this. We'll send out a packet of seeds and nice little touch point, something different to touch point with them, and anniversaries, of course. Definitely on top of all those, a phone call and a letter. We might send $2 $5 scratchies to our clients, and we always get a nice letter back to say thank you very much for thinking of us, and wow, I can't believe it's been 4 years since we purchased, and that's what I've enjoyed now that I've been selling for 3 years. It's, I am getting repeat clients, and you do get more of a kick out of it when you're going in to speak to some warm clients rather than someone you haven't met before. So they know you can get the job done. They were your buyer at one stage, and they know how you operate, and they're comfortable at the start. So it's really rewarding.
All right, let me test your let me give you an exam. It's like Teacher Glenn now. We're gonna go back to school. You're doing an oral presentation. So how I'm now a seller, and you come around and you go, oh gee, how old are you, bud? How long have you been in the industry? What's the role play?
Sure. So Mr. Twiddle, I'm 24, but I look 30, and that's because I've had 9 years in real estate. These grey hairs, come from experience in real estate. It's everything that I know. I love dealing with people. I got a passion for people and property, so this is what I see myself doing throughout my whole life. And what questions do you have? How can I get around that objection that you've got if it is age related? But I've got the numbers under my belt, and I've got the area knowledge for the market that we're in. So whatever scenario it may be, I can be the one to guide you through it.
Yeah, you mentioned area knowledge. I remember Ash Martin started, actually, it was years after you did, because he started at the grand old age of 18 or 19.
Love Ash Martin. He's amazing.
So he used brutal area knowledge as his weapon of choice. Tell us about that, about area knowledge. If someone says, oh yeah, Bob down the road at blah 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 street around the corner from Sizzler, he said his house is worth $550, so mine's got to be worth $600. How brutal is your area knowledge when it comes to knowing what is on the market? Like James Tosterman said, knowing everything that's on the market, whether you listed it or not. Are you at that level? Do you use that as a competition for age as an objection?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like our area prices, range from 200,000 to the acreage estates of 750 plus. So and the pockets. The only thing that separates these pockets is a set of traffic lights. So you need to know what pockets are worth what, and what style of houses are in those pockets, and why they're worth that amount. For example, we've got an area in our local area called Central Lakes, and it's all sort of $400,000 to $500,000 4 and 5 bedroom homes on residential blocks. You go 2 streets across, and you're dealing with some Department of Housing properties, and the $250,000 range. So you do have to know your market, and why Bob from around the corner of Sizzler ended up with less than 2 streets away than Jeff did. So 100%.
Yeah, certainly that was the weapon that Ash used. You could never stump him. He was 19. He looked 12. Yeah. And because now I don't even know how old he is, because he still looks very young.
I remember meeting Ash at one of your speaking events, and I've followed his social media and stuff ever since. He's a legend.
And look at what he's done. Even in that time since then, he's built a massive company, massive brand. He's really grown into his own.
It's inspiring.
He's come with me, I think, either at least 2, if not 3 times to Arnold Schwarzenegger's house with me. And so that buy-in for that poker game is not cheap, and he just loves it. He's a great young man. And it all started when he picked at 24 years old, so he was your age. Yeah. He was playing with the grass, and he picked a 4-leaf clover, and he said, "That's a sign." And he went back and opened up his business. So
it's worth mentioning, Glenn. I do love a game of poker, so
come on. You've got to earn a few bob, because when you're playing and Stallone's at that end of the table, and Jason Statham's at that end, believe me, the buy-in isn't $100 like our old games at Ipswich, I can promise you.
You'd go all in first hand, surely.
I was out first. There was 40 of us playing at 5 tables, and I was out first. They gave me a $3,000 watch just to say, "You idiot, there's your consolation booby prize." Like, literally.
Classic.
Anyway, lots of fun we've had. So let me ask you this. If you've been dealing with buyers for all this time, even at your young age, you would have learned a thing or two about extracting offers. What's your script to extract offers? Maybe you might be angling at getting a multiple offer situation going, so you're wanting to get as many offers as possible.
Sure.
Say I'm walking around the house and I'm not jumping out of my skin begging you to buy it, but I'm not just going, it's rubbish or whatever. But what's some of your dialogue and wording around extracting offers as often as you can, if that's your strategy, if indeed that's your strategy?
So it's worth saying that I think my character is, and people do appreciate it, that I'm not a pushy agent. I'm not going to sit there and say you must make an offer now or you'll miss out. But there's two sides to that sword. Like you do have to be proactive and you do have to guide them to make an offer if they're feeling that way inclined. You know? So if I've had conversations with buyers in the house already, there's multiple circumstances where I've had an open home and it may be the first open home since the property's been listed, and there's 5 or 6 groups of buyers walking around the property, and you can see that people are definitely interested, and that's when you say there and then on the spot that this could end up in a multiple offer situation, and you explain the multiple offer scenario, and just make sure that they're comfortable with how that works, and just make sure the buyers are comfortable, and make sure they're armed with the knowledge that if they do hesitate or if they do wait until after the weekend to make an offer, then they very well might miss out, And that's just being honest. That's not being pushy. It's just being honest of the activity you've got on that property at the time.
Yeah, so it's hard to beat that authenticity, and especially if the marketing's done its job and it is a full open home, you kind of, that's a weapon and an arsenal in your negotiating arsenal. That's a weapon that, they're going to be more serious than if they see no one. So, if they see no one and tumble, if they feel like the power's in their hands, even if there is other people interested and you say it, it's harder for them to believe it than if they see it. Chockers open, full of excitement and full of people, viewing and measuring and doing all that good, fun stuff.